Hello and welcome back to Guild Wars 2. Here we are in Lion's Arch, and right now we're finally about to have a look at the grenade build I use on my engineer. Finally. I've been saying for so long that I was going to do a build video. In pretty much every single Guild Wars 2 video I do with Lumin, the Asuran engineer in, I say, well, soon I'll make a video about my grenade build. And I just never got around to it. Now though, now is time. I'm actually recording this for the second time now, so I'm hoping I don't miss anything or mess it up in any way, because it was perfect the first time around, except this volume over here was all the way over there, and the music was blaring, and I was actually for a good amount of time standing over here, as you can see by the large amount of dots, at the target dummies, and man was it noisy. But in this video we're going to be discussing the weapon skills I use or don't use, because I don't use that many of them, the slot skills I use, and the trait setup that I've got. It's going to be amazing. First, however, there are a few things I need to tell you. One being that my gear is terrible. I guess I pretty much got to 80 and I didn't do any gear grinding or farming or anything like that. I didn't even do very many dungeons. After doing fractals a couple of times, I must say that I am a lot more interested in that kind of thing now. The only sad part is that I'm only really interested in fractals and not so much the other dungeons. The main reason for that is that they just seem so long and tedious. I don't know if the balancing that was changed recently affected that in any way, but the few dungeons that I've done thus far, which were Cordicus Manor, and I did Ascalonian back during the beta. What else did I do? Oh, and Twilight Arbor. I did those, and although they weren't that long for each wing, they did just feel really tedious compared to fractals. And I loved what I did and saw in fractals. Those little mini fractals were so much fun. Anyway, we're not here to talk about that. I'm just saying that my gear is bad and the build itself would be a whole lot better if I actually had proper gear. If I maybe even just had yellow items in all the slots, rare items, then all of this would be much better. Really, would be. And in the few fractal runs that I did, I got so many good items that I still need to check out and sell and like disenchant or whatever I need to do with them. Just need to sort out. My inventory is always a mess, but right now at least it's a mess of cool stuff. I like it. And then look at this. Okay, some of these, ouch, level 46, 47. Ooh, it's bad. Ooh, that is good. That, however, is really, really good. And pretty much every single upgrade slot on my character is unused. I feel so terrible about that. I really do. I feel terrible. Level 32. No. Oh, don't look. Just don't look at it. It's bad. So I've said that. It's out there. Done. Now, the idea behind this build, the reason I use it is because it's the kind of thing I like doing. The idea is that it's meant to have some really decent mobility and range and burst DPS, and I suppose you could call it spike DPS, same thing, burst DPS, and great AoE, like really, really off the hook good damage to large groups of enemies. That's the idea behind my build. Now, I have a few things that I switch around at certain times to make it do certain things. So, for instance, I would switch it around a little bit if I'm doing world versus world, then I'd switch it to something different if I'm doing a dungeon or maybe a fractal, like I said, and then to something completely different, well not completely, but I'd switch a few more things around into different positions if I'm just doing normal PvE out in Tyria. I'm going to show you all those things that I switch around, but the build has many variations of the same core system that I use. Now, I think we should start with the weapon skills. I generally tend to have a rifle equipped when I'm using this. Now, I must say that I spend most of my time with a grenade kit out, so these skills are the ones that I use. The rifle is just an extra because I can switch so quickly between the grenade kit and my rifle. There's literally a 1 second cooldown on that. See there? That's it. 1 second and I can switch back. And the reason that, well, the good thing about that cooldown being so low is that I can use these as extra utility. So I can net someone in, say, PvP or PvE, if it's a veteran or champion or something like that. Keep them at arm's length with the nets. So I can net and then just switch straight back to the grenade kit and keep dishing the damage out. Same goes for the other skills here, like overcharged shot, which stuns. It knocks them back too. It knocks them back for a bit longer than it knocks me back. So I can knock back, then I'll get some distance between me and them, whoever they are. Be able to get my grenade kit out immediately, like this. Let me show it to you, because I love showing things off. I do that, and then I switch straight to the grenade kit. I'm up on my feet, I got my grenades out, and I can start raining death down on them. That's it. I can also use my little jump shot, which I'm sure everyone knows. I use that so much. So good. That also just means that when I'm spending time in jumping puzzles or stuff like that, then I don't need to really carry the rifle around just for that. So there you go. I don't use that so much. That bar is hardly ever there. It's usually that bar that you're looking at. So I'm not going to talk too much about it. Now, I'll start by talking about the last skill that I'm using here, the last utility skill, which is the grenade kit. I could have it here at the start, but, you know, it doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. We're going to talk about the heal at the end, because the heal, it's also not really a big deal. But the grenade kit itself, it's pretty much just, it's a kit. It's like the items you pick up on the ground. It replaces your bar down here, and when you have it equipped, you can use these skills. There's no timer on it, nothing like that. You can use it as long as you want. One of the perks of being an engineer. One of the best perks of being an engineer. So that's it. Most of the stuff relating to the grenade kit would be the traits that I'm using. We're going to talk about that after I've had a look at the utility skills. But here I'm using the rifle turret and the rocket turret. Now these are so interesting to talk about. They really are. There's so much going on with these two skills. You wouldn't think so, but there is. They are so multi-purpose that it hurts. So, engineers have this little thing called the tool belt here. Now, a lot of the other classes have sort of the same thing, but it doesn't work in the same way. I know that Elementalist, for instance, has their little attunement bar here or something. Not the same as the tool belt. I know the Thief has their little initiative counter along with Steel here. Again, not the same as the tool belt. And not nearly as cool. This is why. So, these skills here dictate what's going to be in the tool belt. So if I take the grenade kit away and perhaps put a bomb kit there, then hey, I got a big old bomb. Look. That's amazing, by the way. That is a big old bomb. Now I switch back to the grenade kit, and something completely different is in there. Look at that. Oh, just like that. Grand. Same goes for these two. When I've got the rifle turret equipped, I've got surprise shot there. When I've got the rocket turret equipped, I've got rocket there. Now, that is already one of the reasons that I use those two skills. Because of the skills they give me in my tool belt. Now, my traits are set up in such a way, we're going to talk about them when we're done with the utility skills and the weapon skills and everything else, the elite skill as well. But they set up in such a way that they benefit my grenade kit, my explosives, and my tool belt. Those are the two main focuses of the build. So I guess you could call it a grenade kit slash tool kit, grenade kit slash tool belt build, but I would say the main focus is still the grenade kit. These are extras. They're amazing extras, but they're extras. So, let's start over here. Rifle turret. Now, the rifle turret itself, you can just put down, along with the rocket turret. They stand here. I think they got about 8k life, maybe 7,500. And what's really great is, because I've got the mobility that I've got with this build, is that I can put them down, and either in PvP or PvE, both, or one or the other, they will distract your enemy. So, if they don't distract the enemy, if in PvP, for instance, my enemy decides to come for me instead of going for them, they're going to be shooting at him, thereby doing something that I want them to do. Extra DPS. So that's okay. I can run really fast. I'll show you why I can run really fast in just a second or two. It's one of my traits, or a couple of the traits actually. And if I keep switching between these kits here, I get that swiftness boost, which is even faster. I can run fast, kite enemies. The rocket turret, the rifle turret, they'll both shoot said enemies. Now, if that enemy, be it an NPC, a mob, a creep, whatever you want to call it, attacks the turrets, or if the player attacks the turrets in PvP, then it gives me, once again, time to put some distance between myself and said target. And I'm talking some serious distance here. Look at this. Take a moment to appreciate the gravity of this range situation. Look how far away those turrets are. I can barely make them out at this distance. They are literally across Lion's Arch right now. That's incredibly far. Look at that. Look at the air time that my grenades get. It takes a long time for them to get there. Okay. I could drop the player that was standing there like a text message or something saying, hey, incoming grenade. And the text message would get there before it drops. They'd be able to read it, and then they'd have a grenade popping down on their head. And that's a good thing. It's a little bit more difficult to target players or mobs that are moving, but that's why you have the freeze grenade, which we're going to talk about in a little while, don't worry. But the main thing is, that's just another use for the turrets. If a mob gets distracted by them, you get to put some distance between you and that mob or player. That's great. Then, if they're busy attacking them there, you think your rocket turret's going to die, well, no problem. Blow it up. Do extra damage to them. They don't get the kill. They take extra damage. They feel like fools. Because they were attacking those turrets for nothing. You blow them both up at the same time, you do even more damage. Wow. Super cool. I love it. I can't get enough of that. So to recap. You can use the turrets to do extra damage when they shoot things. You use them to get these skills here. You use them to distract your enemies. Then you use them to do extra damage by blowing them up. Wow. All the while putting distance between yourself and your enemies. There you go. That's why I use the two turrets there. There are other skills that I kind of like and I switch out to when I'm doing different things. Sometimes I want more survivability or something. Then I'll take some of these elixirs, which are reasonably good. Maybe I take something like Daze, which is Technobabble, or Irradiation Field if I want even more AoE. But I generally tend to stick, or if I want more Disable, then I'll go for something like the Mine, which stuns and knocks back and all that stuff. I can switch around, but I prefer to go for the two turrets. They're cool. Now Rocket is pretty straightforward. It shoots a rocket out, damages your enemy. Then we're going to talk about that little lightning bolt that goes out there when I use these skills in just a moment or two. That's one of the traits that I'm going to look at, and it's one of my favorite traits actually. And these skills do a really good amount of damage. I'm going to show you. They'll do more damage if my gear's better, obviously, but I'm going to show you on the target dummies in just a moment or two over here. But because something like the surprise shot, which is there, or the grenade barrage, which comes from the grenade kit right there, which is really good, I must add. Damage 216 on 8 grenades. Really good radius, big AoE damage, and lots of it. It's good. Just straight up good, and you can use them all in rapid succession. I've got a whole bunch of bonuses that I get from using them, from my traits, which we'll look at in just a second. And now, my healing skill is called Elixir H. I switch between the healing turret and Elixir H every now and then, but I generally prefer Elixir H because it gives more healing. It its cooldown is a little bit longer, but it's not really a big deal. It gives more healing, and those extras that it gives you, they kind of help. Because you want healing from your healing skill, I prefer having regen. But because of the build that I've got, once again, swiftness is also quite nice, especially for 10 seconds. Not bad at all, but as I said, I do sometimes switch between the healing turret and Elixir H, because in parties and stuff, the turret does tend to help out a little bit more. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. The elite skill I use is called Supply Crate, and it once again just fits in with all the rest. I can drop it down, it stuns everything in that radius there that you saw. It's got a reasonably long cooldown like most elite skills. It drops 3 turrets, 1 flame, 1 net, and 1 healing, which is once again cool, and a bunch of healing kits. So that, along with the stun, along with the damage, is cool. Really, really good. Well worth adding to your build. The other elite skills I've got here aren't that great. I don't really like them very much. I haven't tried the suits and stuff that much, but I just think that this fits so much better than the others with the build that I've got. So now, I think we're going to go over here to Fort Mariner, to the target dummies, and I'm going to show you the grenades and how they work in practice, instead of just showing you on open ground, tossing them around, seeing how far I can toss them. No, now you're going to see numbers, and that's all that matters. Well, not so much for me. I'm going to say that's the least least important thing at the moment in this video because of my gear. Now, I realize if I had better gear, it would be better. I've said that like so many times. I'm going to say it so much more, but you can still get a good idea of the damage, output, the range, and pretty much everything else of this build just by looking at this. So now, firstly, you can see here that if you toss it, I don't know if that's going to hit all of them now because they're up on the slant there. No, it does. So if you toss it over there, you can hit multiple targets, which is obviously great. And you can see that each toss actually consists of 3 grenades. So if I toss it there, you'll see 3 numbers pop up. They may not be very high, but again, we're focusing on the AoE aspect here. And with the different grenades, that's just my basic attack. Okay, with the different grenades, the numbers are higher, and the utility is obviously increased as well. Also, again, I hate to say it, but better gear would be higher damage. Now, normal grenade, there are 3 of them. I'll explain that once I show you the traits. So we'll get to that, get to why there are 3 of them. But all of these toss in 3s. Some of them slightly more damage, some of them slightly more radius, some of them different effects. So shrapnel grenade here, it does bleeding damage. It doesn't obviously really help very much against practice targets, because I don't think you can shrapnel them, but it's got a very decent bleed effect. As you can see, 15.5 seconds, 846 damage, not bad. Its cooldown is obviously also very quick, as you can see there, 4 seconds. That is once again reduced by some traits we're going to look at in a moment. Then, the flash grenade, which applies blindness but does significantly less damage. This is once again one of those that I don't always throw out. It depends on what you're doing. It depends on what your enemy is doing. It's all situational. I don't know what this guy's doing over here. I think he's trying to look cool or something. Maybe he knows I'm recording. Maybe not. Maybe he's just testing his weapons out. Who knows? But that's a flash grenade. Then the freeze grenade, which is my favorite in the bar. And again, I could be standing all the way back here if I wanted to. Look at this. Look at that range. The freeze grenade slows for 66% movement speed, and it slows the skill recharge rate by 66% as well. That's crazy. That is so useful, and it's such a huge radius too. What I also find great is that if someone's chasing you, then you don't need to flip your view around. I usually have a key on my mouse, a button on my mouse that flips my view around to that view like that, but you don't need to flip your view to toss there, which I think is great. Okay, so you zoom out all the way, and if you know your opponent is sort of right here behind you, or is going to be right there in a moment or two, you can run like this and toss the grenades there, and they would end up landing, as you can see, in your wake. Kinda cool as well. And because you're probably going to be faster than your opponent, or the player, mob, whatever's chasing you, you'll be able to get away, you'll be slowing them, and you'll have sick movement speed because of all the swiftness you're going to get. I'll show you that in just a second in the traits. because of that, you're going to be able to stay away and deal damage. Now, the last grenade here is the poison grenade, which is pretty good damage, but it also puts this poison field down, which means that if they linger in it, they'll take more damage, and if they even just move in it afterwards, they'll take more damage. So, to conclude this little section, you can see that you can toss pretty much all these grenades in rapid succession the whole time. The whole time, you can throw out your little tool belt skills as well, and any of them, every single one you use makes that little bolt that, which I'll show you in just a second, deals extra damage. Look at that. Wow, even more AoE, even more damage. So good. So good. Now, if you're quick with your fingers, which I am when it comes to Guild Wars, because I've got all my keys set up really nicely, really closely to where I want to be, then you can just be doing this. Okay, you can toss your grenades wherever you want them. Maybe back there, okay, because the numbers look much cooler when there are more of them. And when you feel the need, when you want to have that extra little bit of DPS, that extra burst of damage, then you can start tossing your tool belt skills in there as well. And this is a weird way of saying it, but it's kind of like World of Warcraft. Some of the characters used to play in World of Warcraft, you wanted to always keep all your skills on cooldown, and this is how that works. So you want to keep these on cooldown while filling the gaps with the normal grenades. Then, when you want to have that extra burst of DPS, you will go through everything, Shift Q, Shift E, Shift Z. Those are mine right there, and you'll toss them all out there to do that extra damage, to take whatever you want down that much quicker. Straight up. Straight up. This over here, which I didn't show you, is a toss version of the elixir, which pretty much just helps any allies or yourself out where you toss it, while at the same time making that little electric bolt, that static discharge that we're going to talk about when we get to the traits. So it's also kind of useful. Gives you either vigor, regen, or protection. I prefer having the regen there, but I mean, extra endurance regeneration is always nice, as is protection. It obviously depends on the circumstances of the situation you're in. Now, I think we've spoken about all of these in great enough detail. I can obviously put the 2 turrets down here to increase my DPS. You can see that they do reasonably good damage, and when I'm done with them, I can blow them up, and if they're close enough, they'll do damage and stuff. It's pretty cool. I like it. It works really well. Now, keep in mind that when your turrets are out, you can't use these two, so it's sort of a sacrifice that you make, and it again depends on the situation that you're in. So if you're busy, say, kiting a mob around and you don't want to focus on too many things at the same time, you're trying to survive, then perhaps you'll drop these turrets and have them shoot the whole time while you're moving around. Then maybe when you have more time to think, you won't, and you'll be using your tool belt skills the whole time. That depends. Comes down to your personal playstyle. But now, let's have a look here. I don't use my other weapons very much. As I said at the start, would probably not end up using pistols or the shields. I did use a pistol and a shield for a while, mainly because of the extra toughness and stats you get from having those two, and the offhand and stuff, but the rifle just ends up being the weapon for me. Now, traits. Whew, these are good. Obviously we go for explosives because that is the main focus of this build, the grenades. Then the firearms part that I've got here, the 10 points in firearms, this is optional, okay? I like getting the precision or the extra crit, and the condition damage is kind of cool too. I'll show you why, because this all synergizes nicely, and I'm also going to show you the different variations that you get of this build. So these are all my own doing. I didn't find a build anywhere. I thought this up by myself, and this is just something that ended up being fun for me, so I stuck with it and kind of polished it a bit as time went by. I just tweaked a bit here and there, and I kind of like how it ended up working. So, tools, explosives, firearms for now. Firearms could have been inventions or alchemy as well. I just prefer what you get from this. Let's start with explosives. It gives power, condition duration. First one here, create a bomb when you dodge. Now, the bomb is cool because it's also affected by the rest of your explosives traits. So it does more damage, but it's not a big deal. That's not a big deal at all. We're going to look at the middle ones first, then go for the actual ones that I chose. Here, release number of timed mines when your health reaches 25%. Kind of cool. Not much to explain there. It does a bit of extra damage. Then explosions cause vulnerability for 5 seconds. That's all explosions. Once again, that'll also work for these two. The mines, the keg, and all my grenades, and the rocket turret. Basically anything that explodes. Simple enough. Then, my adept skill. I kind of switch this one around every now and then, but the one I'm using at the moment is apply 5-second cripple to your foes when you hit them and they're below 25% health. So that's really good in places like World vs. World, or when you fight in bigger groups of mobs in dungeons and stuff like that. Mainly World vs. World, because that cripple helps everyone on the battlefield out, not just you. It obviously helps you do more damage and stuff, but, or at least the cripple slows them down, right? I'm not even sure what a cripple is, but it's nice that it applies it to everyone, and it once again just helps everyone out. But I do switch that more often than not to this. I like having any skills that work with crit, mainly because I've already got that increased precision, and down here's more. You'll see now. More often than not, I end up using either this or incendiary powder, because this will inflict burn-in for 2 seconds on critical hits, and I generally tend to get a lot of critical hits because of the sheer amount of chances there are, because each toss of a grenade ends up being 3 extra chances to get that crit, which is great. Now, I also use shrapnel, which is kind of cool, because once again there are just so many explosions. So 15%, it tends to be quite a lot more than 15%, or feel a lot more, because of the sheer number that's going out there. Look at all those numbers popping up. 15% will definitely pop up a lot if you throw in that many grenades at a time. So it's kind of cool. Kind of cool. I switch between those. As I said, there's a lot of variation. My favorite would be the one on critical hit, just because, I'll show you in just a second, there are actually a couple that work with critical hits. These two here, Master and Grandmaster, are absolutely essential. You can't not use them. Short fuse, for bombs and grenades, your recharge rate is 20% faster, and that's once again self-explanatory. That just means that these will recharge much faster down here, and you'll get to use the ones that you want to use, the more important ones, more often. So that's great. Then the most important one of all, Grenadier. You throw grenades 25% farther, and you throw an extra grenade with each grenade kit skill. Again, self-explanatory, but super important for the build. This is what allows you to stand so far away and have 3 numbers popping up instead of just 2. So good. I like it. Then in tools, which is the other important one, firearms, not so much, you get extra critical damage. Again, great, because you got this here, the precision. That's the reason I said I went for firearms. And you are kind of going for that on your gear again as well. You want the power, you want the crit, you want the precision, that kind of stuff really helps. Then here, increases your tool belt recharge rate by 30%. That's all of these again. So you can use them more often, you can have more static discharges, you can just do more damage. Straight up. Okay? Good. I hope this is all sinking in, because I'm not a great teacher, but I love talking about this specific build, so hopefully, you know, the passion will be enough. Now, using tool belt skills restores 10% of your endurance. You can actually see that happening. It's kind of cool, but, you know, again, not huge. You can see that it pops up a little bit faster when you use the skills on your tool belt, and that's kind of nice. It's nice being able to dodge the whole time, but it's not essential to the build or anything like that. Here, you have, when your health reaches 25%, your tool belt skills recharge instantly. That's really cool for things like the rocket, because the rocket has a really long cooldown, and if you can cut a 45-second cooldown off anything, that's good. Then you also have, once you reach 25%, that extra little burst of damage, and maybe a little bit of regen, or whatever you end up getting from it, extra. So that's good. Over here, increases damage by 10% when endurance is full. Now this comes into play when you're doing a dungeon, or when you're standing on a wall in World vs. World. it sort of ties into where I said before, where you've got time to think. Then you're not going to be dodging the whole time. You don't need to stay mobile, and it makes it that you just do that little bit of extra damage. Now, I've got a few skills that slot in or synergize with this specific one here, and I'm going to show them to you in just a moment. They're mostly down here in the tools section, but Speedy Kits is you gain swiftness for 5 seconds whenever you switch to a kit. So you can get this all the time. You can move around with swiftness on indefinitely. So I switch away, switch back, there's swiftness again. You can keep switching between them the whole time, and you'll always have swiftness on. That's kind of nice. That's just when I want the mobility, but sometimes I switch that out to something like... Where is it? Actually, I think it's that. I think static discharge can actually go there. Hold on. Wait. Here we go. Speedy Kits. There you go. Okay, so generally I have static discharge over here, which we're going to talk about now. There you go. This discharge is a bolt of lightning whenever you use a tool belt skill. That's the one you've been seeing all this time. That's that there. It shoots out. There it goes again. Kind of cool, nice range, good damage. I like it. So I have that there. And this one, I sometimes switch out to... Where is it? This. When you're standing still, you have 10% extra critical hit chance. That's for those times that you've got to think. When you can stand there, use all your skills and not worry about dodging attacks. That's great then. Otherwise, as I said, Speedy Kits, kinda cool. Then, the final one here, move 10% faster while using an unarmed kit. That is, in fact, the grenade kit. Perma 10% speed is nice. Not like the thief that uses a signet or whatever. I actually get that in a trait, which is kind of cool. And I do also switch this one out. Sometimes you can put that one here as well. Doesn't really matter. You know, you can pretty much do this the way you want to do it, which is the fun in this build. And the last part is firearms. I said again, I went here for the precision, and the condition damage is kind of useful too. 30% chance to cause bleeding for 3 seconds on critical hits. Again, synergy. Extra crit is always good. Always. There you go. Then over here, I change this one out every now and then, but right now, 50% chance to gain swiftness for 5 seconds on critical hits. Once again on critical hits, once again, mobility. You can change this to, you know, I think there was one that I used here. I don't often use rifle range because that's kind of pointless, but the vulnerability is nice. And that's 50% chance on critical hits. Kind of good. See, if I switch that to that, and we use in this, and that, the whole bunch of them, and this one, with our extra precision, the whole bunch of them just gel so nicely together and make the build that much more powerful when you're standing still. And you have full endurance. Okay? It's amazing. So good. I think I'm done. That's the build I use. I said before I came up with it entirely by myself, and that's true. I messed around with all sorts of stuff before. I used to use a rifle build, but when I discovered the grenade kit, I knew that that was the one for me, and then I just tinkered with it over, you know, the period of my playing this character, and I sort of got it to the point where I was entirely happy with it, and I feel this is the best way to work with coming up with a spec, because if you just play your characters, see what you enjoy, see what works for you and your personal play style, you just spend that time with your character, get to know it really well, then you'll come up with your dream spec. Sort of like this is for me with Engineer, at the moment at least. It might change. My tastes might evolve. But this I came up with because I did what I was enjoying. I wanted something mobile. I wanted reasonable damage, and I wanted nice AoE, because AoE is fun. Let's face it, when there are 20 people standing in a little group like that, pounding away at a door in World vs. World, and you can toss those grenades down on them, it is the most satisfying thing in the world. So I urge all of you to, when you level your characters, not go out and look for builds. Don't go out and look what the best build is for an engineer. No, don't look what the highest DPS build is for an elementalist. Why? Why let that influence the way you set your build up? Rather do what you feel is fun. Rather do what works for you and your playstyle. That's how I did it, and that's how I recommend everyone does it. And that is going to be it for this episode. I just took a screenshot. I don't know why I took a screenshot, but there you go. That's it. Check back here soon for more. I hope you guys enjoyed it. You guys can feel free to let me know if you use similar builds, what your dream build is, what you're enjoying. If you do it the same way that I do it, if you level your character, get to know it really, really well, and then tinker with the builds that you've got and finally end up with the ultimate build. Is that how you guys do it? That's how I do it. So that's it. Check back soon for more. I am in a short-ish amount of time, soon enough. I'll have another video. I wanted to say another build video up, but another video up introducing you to my new character. Not gonna even tell you her name right now. Some of you know her name, some don't. She's a thief, and I've been enjoying her immensely. I've been playing a lot more Guild Wars in the last little while than I have been for who knows how long before it, because I've just been sort of reinvigorated, and I've been enjoying the Thief class immensely, a lot. It's cool. It's very technical. It's very difficult, but it's fun. And that is, once again, just the most important thing. Fun. So you'll have a video about that soon, but it'll be an introduction video, not a build video, because I don't know anything about thieves. Maybe I'll even ask for some hints and tips from you thief players out there, because I've seen some amazingly good thieves in Illuminati. I really have. Super good thieves. So I'm going to be talking to you soon. Then, I'll probably also have a video out talking about the Laurel Merchant here, and some of the ideas that I have for my thief character, and maybe other stuff. I was actually spending a bit of time now when we started recording over here at the new lighthouse, and I'm kind of curious about what they're going to do there. I know this is now not relating to the whole build video, but I'm going to be talking about that, everything that's going on over there, in the same video as the Laurel Merchant. I'm not sure when that's coming out, probably soon. I might also do a video covering the Flame and Frost stuff. All of it. Check back here soon for the lot of that. Most importantly though, happy finally having a look at my engineer build. The grenade kit build. The grenade kit / tool belt build. Happy that.